Hello and welcome back to the Red and White podcast. News last night. We've now got a game on Saturday, and I managed to organise two guests at last minute. First of all, Dmitri, thanks a lot for coming on, Hull City fan.
Hi guys.
And Gary Pearson from SAFC Fans React.
Hi guys.
We'll just jump straight into it. Dmitri, obviously the whole fan today, we always like to find out a little bit about the opposition on this show. Last result, a 2-0 win against Charlton, obviously a fellow promotion rival. After 3 losses in a row, good result?
Yeah, massive result. Not just a good result, a massive result. Really settled a lot of nerves within the club, I think, and definitely among the fans. There was some unrest. You know, you can take the odd loss when you're in a promotion race, but 3 back-to-backs, you know, it's significant and it was worrying. And there was suggestions that Grant McCann had been tactically found out and he didn't have a plan B, which was something that plagued him last year. So when it arises again, it's a problem fans have seen before. They're obviously more sensitive and quicker to react. But no, massive result against a promotion candidate and back on track, I think. Back on track, hopefully.
What do you think went differently in that game to the last 3? Did they just not find you out tactically?
No, and I think our style of play, which is quite counter-attacking, that's how Grant McCann likes to play, actually puts us in a better position against better teams than it does against poorer teams. We've struggled against poorer teams in the league and got some really good results against the teams up at the top. And, you know, we had less possession and we had less shots, I believe. But I know we definitely had less possession. And it suited us. It suited us because that's the way we play. And when teams come to us and try and play and try and attack, that's when we can. That's when we're at our best. Whereas you see some teams come to us and they put 10 men behind the ball, and we struggle. And Grant McCann does struggle to break teams down.
Yeah, I think that happens a lot of this league where, you know, teams have one plan. We saw a lot in Phil Parkinson, who of course got sacked not too long ago, where you know, if a team figured us out tactically and did just put 10 men behind the ball and look to cut out our kind of main stages of play going forward, then we weren't going to score a goal. It was simple as that. Gary, obviously, I know you did your reaction with myself on Fans React. So our last game, a 0-0 draw against Northampton. I thought we defended really well. Do you think it was just a lack of creativity that meant we didn't win the game?
I think the thing for me is, you know, having had the break we've had, new manager, you know, players. I think we had, what was it, 14 in the club with COVID.
There was around 13, 14, I think, yeah.
Yeah, there was obviously a few players affected more than others. I think we've got to give a little bit of leeway to the fact that it was almost like starting again on a couple of levels. You know, they haven't been training together. They're still getting used to Johnson. So I'm hoping it was a bit of a false result bit of a false performance in terms of not really putting things together as there would have been if they'd been on the training ground. Having said that, I saw Hull's results and they'd not played for a couple of weeks and they come back and got a great result. So they kind of prove that a little bit. But yeah, I'm quite glad we've got this game in on Saturday night. You know, I was worried that we were going to have another 2-week break, and I think we need to get going. Like Dmitri, I'm hoping it'll be a good game because we struggle against teams who park the bus, so to speak. So this could be quite open because if they're trying to play on the counter attack and us being the home team, we're trying to press. It could turn into quite an interesting match.
Yeah, I think it would have panned out a lot differently this fixture if we had Phil Parkinson. I think with the way that we're playing in the league, Johnson was sent to be a lot more expressive with a lot more freedom, and we like to press a little bit more from the front. So I think it could be a lot more of an open game. But if we'd had Phil Parkinson, I could have seen this being a 0-0 with anyone barely having any shots if Hull are going to come to defend. Dmitri, I mean, at the start of the season, you're absolutely flying. I mean, you know, we played you when we had a 0-0 draw in the cup. I thought we were probably slightly the better team in that game, but you know, of course, you ended up winning on penalties, and that's the way it went. But what do you think's happened since then? Because I mean, you had a great run of form, but you see it dropped off. I mean, you got that win against Charlton. Aside from getting tactically figured out, what do you think's went wrong, or was it just that?
I just think that we did go on a great run, and I think we would use some bad results. I do think we would use some bad results. It's a tough league, League One. It's tough to get out of, and there's a lot of really there's a lot of really smart teams that plays their strengths and are difficult to break down. And like I said, with Grant McCann, if plan A doesn't go to plan A doesn't go according to a plan, then he doesn't have a plan B. And when that doesn't work, then we're screwed. So we just we've been lucky enough that we've got a quality team, and that quality often shines through. And when plan A goes well, it's great and we win comfortably. But when it doesn't go well, it can be ugly. We can, we've had some pretty embarrassing results for us. We lost to Shrewsbury, and I think they're 22nd, and we were first or second at the time, and that was a shocker. That was a stunner. And no, we've had some bad results, but you're going to lose some games during the course of the season, especially in the Football League. And I'm not worried. I'm not panicked. If we'd have lost at the weekend, it'd be different. That result was very big.
Yeah. When we play on Saturday, who is it that we need to look out for? I mean, you clearly have got a lot of quality in the side. Is there anyone in particular?
I'd say the midfield pairing of Greg Doherty and George Honeyman, a man Sunderland fans will be familiar with, who's been fantastic this season. Absolutely fantastic. Absolutely grafts every game, works so hard, does all the dirty work, can play a pass. His set pieces have been lovely. And Greg Doherty next to him is fantastic because he's an engine and he puts the foot in and he does dirty work, but he's also technically really good too. And those two, I think that might be the best midfield pairing in the league. It's that simple. And while we have them in the team, we've got a great chance to be promoted.
Yeah, I was a huge fan of George Honeyman. I don't know about you, Gary, but I know he got a lot of stick off a lot of fans. But I really rated him his time at Sunderland. I thought he offered us a lot of energy going forward. He always put 100% in. Always wore his heart on his sleeve, and he always tried to do something different where things won't work, and he was the kind of the player to step up and take responsibility. I think a lot of fans forget he actually scored quite a lot of important goals. I think he might have only scored about 6 goals in that first League One season, but I'm fairly sure most of them, if not all of them, were in games where we won by 1 goal. I mean, Gary, seeing as we're on this, your thoughts on George Honeyman when he was at Sunderland?
I agree with you. In all honesty, Jack, I was a fan. To me, if you've got a player who's prepared to put the amount of energy and effort in, as Honeyman did, then you've got something to build around. I remember going to Bolton in the Championship, and it was disappointing. We lost 1-0, but Honeyman was everywhere on that pitch, and as a team, it wasn't a good performance. There wasn't much quality on the pitch, and he kind of got slated afterwards for not doing this and not doing that. And I thought, at least didn't go hiding, because there was about 8 others who went missing in that game. But his effort was absolutely superb. I don't know how many miles he ran on the night, but he was all over the pitch. And when you've got that kind of lad in the team, and I think probably Hull are getting the benefit now, it lifts other players. It brings more energy to the team. Players know he's going to be available because he's always looking for the ball and he's going to make runs, but he's going to get back and support the defence. I think as a midfielder, as Dmitri said, particularly at this level, I think he's well suited. And if I compare him to what we've brought in since letting him go, the likes of Dobson and possibly Scowen, then we've weakened the team. I'm pleased to see him doing well. He's a local lad, and I've got to say, Dmitri, I saw I don't know if it was the first or second goal against Charlton, but the back heel he set up. That's superb. I thought it was one of the best goals of the weekend. That
lovely, touch of class, and a great finish by Doherty.
Oh, that was Doherty, was it? Right, yeah.
Oh no, obviously the role was Honeyman, and then Doherty finished it off. So yeah, lovely goal.
No,
it's sod's law, isn't it, Jack? On Saturday, he's going to have a good game. No, we know that.
It's great to see him doing well. Because I really rated him in his time, and I not only rated him, but I really respected him as a lad. I thought he came across so well on the Netflix documentary in particular, and he always put 100% in and always kept going right till the very end. So wherever he goes in his career, if he stays at Hull or even if he comes back to us, if he goes to a different club, I'll always back him and always keep an eye on his career. I was just interested to hear how he's getting on, but pleased he's doing well. Dmitri, what kind of formation and tactics do you tend to use? I mean, I know you said you're playing counter-attacking football, but he's 4 at the back, 3 at the back, target man, you know.
Well, it's club policy to play a 4-3-3, dictated by our owner. So it's out the manager's hands, which, if you ask me, is pretty pathetic that any manager would let an owner tell them what formation they have to play. But bearing in mind that isn't official, but it's very much alleged, and he hasn't wavered from it even when we was on a terrible run. So the 4-3-3 is pretty ordinary as you'd expect, but as I referenced with the midfield pairing, it'll usually sit Richie Smallwood or Angus Jones in just behind him as a holding midfielder, which is pretty defensive for a team who are trying to win a league title. That's why I referenced that. Sometimes when teams come and they put 10 men behind the ball, we struggle to break them down because we're quite defensively set up a lot of the time.
Yeah, all right. Always like to just find out how it is the opposition can line up. I mean, for ourselves, I think you can probably expect the same formation, really, of 4-3-3 with a player just sat behind the midfield 3, one being just sat behind the other two. Tend to be Ledbetter in the hole, pulling the strings, with usually Power and Scowen just ahead of them. Gary, I had this written down to ask you about the midfield. Obviously, we're playing 3 midfielders at the moment. As I mentioned, it tends to be Ledbetter with Power and Scowen tend to play just ahead of them. I mean, I've made a count here. I'm really not a huge fan of Scowen, but I'm also a little bit of a defender of George Dobson. Out of the lads in midfield, if you could pick 3 midfielders to play, who would it be?
It certainly wouldn't be George Dobson, that's for sure.
I was expecting that.
Oh dear me, there's rumours he might go back to Walsall. I'll put him in the car and drive him there myself. I think Scowen and Power in front of Ledbetter has worked quite well. Certainly he did it at Lincoln. I mean, I know Dmitri was talking about Doherty and Honeyman being class in the middle. You know, we know how much we rely on Ledbetter. Pulling the strings. I think that role just suits him perfectly, and I'm quite happy to have him there. Power's a funny player because, again, he gets a lot of stick, but to me, he's got a decent engine on him. He's got a shot on him. He's just inconsistent, really, is the thing. I think sometimes he tries too hard. Scowen, the jury's still out a bit on Scowen for me. He got slated Saturday gone, but then, they were all pretty awful. That would probably be my preferred 3 to start off with. I'd still like to see Embleton given a run.
Same.
Looks as though Dan Neil might be going out on loan. That's the rumour, but I'd like to see Dan Neil given a chance as well. But yeah, for me, in terms of experience, I'd be going with those 3 to start off with. And, we already know that Hull's got a good midfield, so we're going to have to match them on Saturday. So I'd go with that experienced 3, I think.
Do you think Power's improved under Lee Johnson? Because although he hasn't been here very long, and although there's not been a drastic change in performances, I feel as if he's been freed a bit. Whereas I feel as if under Parkinson he was constantly restrained to that role of pulling back, and as soon as he's getting the ball, just redistributing it out to the wing backs. But I feel as if under Lee Johnson, we're seeing already he's getting a bit more freedom, and to me, he just seems to get involved a bit more and act. To be honest with you, and this sounds harsh, but actually do something. I didn't see him doing anything under Parkinson.
To me, Power struggled last year when he was in a 2. When we saw he seemed to play 2 holding midfielders, and it was Power and Dobson often. And I don't think that suited him at all.
No.
I think he kind of shackled a bit. And it put the focus on his passing, which can be very hit and miss. I think he needs a bit more freedom. He tends to get put on the left if Scowen's on the right, and I don't think that suits him either. But I think, again, it was the Lincoln game. They seem to switch from time to time. And that might be Johnson's doing. He might have given them permission to alternate sides of the pitch. I think he's the type of player. I've got no proof of this, but I think he's the type of player where if a manager believes in him and gives him a bit of free rein, we'll see a different Power. And I think Johnson might get the best out of him. I think he's a bit more of a. I think he's that type of confidence player. So hopefully Johnson will get the best out of him, whether it's on the right or the left.
Yeah, I think when he was at Wigan, which was probably the most successful time of his career, he was. I mean, someone can correct us if I'm wrong, but I think he was largely quite a free roaming player. And I think that's why they got the best out of him, where he wasn't really told where he had to play, but rather, I think they played 4-4-1-1, him being the one behind Greg. And I think the other four midfielders were kind of told what how to do, but I think Powell's just kind of given a free roam, and I think that's where they got the best out of him, because he just went into those little pockets of space and used the bit quality that he's got in the final third. Create, really. Dmitri, obviously you've mentioned that you struggle if a team figures out, and particularly if a team's defensive, but are there any of the weak points in your squad that we look to exploit?
We're a little bit uncertain at left back right now, which is a shame because we've got two fantastic right backs, and both of them should be starting at this level. Unfortunately, one of them has to sit on the bench. But Callum Milder's been shaky, and he's had some injury troubles recently. So we might have to start our backup, Brandon Fleming, who isn't a bad player necessarily, not at all. He's a young lad, but that does mean there's some naivety and he's a little bit vulnerable. So I'd definitely say the left-hand side would probably be a little bit vulnerable, and maybe a position, an area which you guys would look to attack. Which
will be very interesting, because a player who's came into the Sunderland team recently wasn't really given a chance under the last managers, Jack Diamond, who tends to play on the front, tends to play on the right of the front three. I think he was a left winger kind of growing up and coming through the academy, but he's been shifted over to the right, and he's been absolutely, I'm sure Gary will agree, he's been absolutely fantastic since he's came in. He's just offered us a new route going forward, it seems, where he just seems different to all of the wingers we've got, where he's far more direct, he's got a little bit of pace, he's got a lot more initiative, and he seems to be quite bold, and just kind of take responsibility and do something at times, and not really be too cautious about what's going on behind him, which I think is something that we've struggled with largely so far this season. Really, Gary, would you agree with everything I've said there?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I saw a little bit of him when he was with Harrogate Town last season, and he looked good, but of course that's at a different level, and he looked good on the right. He's crossing and like you said, attacking the back line. And even in games like Northampton the other day, when the whole team didn't play well, sometimes his touch and sometimes the way he occupies, maybe his two other players, has got to be to our advantage. And the other thing for me, which obviously Parkinson didn't do in terms of blooding the youngsters, is sometimes the youngsters they're not afraid to try things, are they? And I think he's got that in his game. That's, if you like, it's not been coached out of him yet. He's still willing to maybe try a flick and try and move the ball on quickly instead of holding on to it too long, like some of our lads do. So yeah, I've got high hopes for Diamond. And it's interesting, if you can expose any weaknesses they've got at left back, that could be a way in for us. So that sounds promising.
Yeah, definitely as well. I think the player who's kind of dropped off in form recently in Chris Maguire, where he kind of, he does it all the time, where he has a few great games, he'll go on a run of scoring and setting up goals, and then he'll drop off for a little bit, and then he'll pick it back up again. Sometimes you just need to be dropped off the team for a little bit and maybe recharge the batteries. Maybe it's just a kick up the backside, or I don't know, whatever. But Maguire tends to dip in form, and I think he's had a bit of a dip in form recently. And Diamond's done well to just come in and fill that void, I guess, really. Obviously, you touched on Elliot Embleton wanting to come in the team, a player who I want to see get more involved as well. Dan Neil, of course, you mentioned, you mentioned he might have been going out alone. I've not heard about that, but of course, it's a possibility. There's other players as well coming through. Josh Hawkes, he's a forward player who, the one chance he did get in the Fleetwood game, he didn't really impress me. Player who did impress me was the lad at left centre back, Oliver Younger, who I believe is now more or less back to full fitness at centre back. I believe he plays. Obviously, Morgan Feeney could have been coming in, but he's been told now he's leaving at the end of the month. Out of all the youngsters I've mentioned, and out of anyone else who I haven't mentioned, I'm sure I've missed someone. Who would you bring in and give a shot to?
I haven't seen a lot of some of them. I've seen clips of Dan Neil, and he looks good. Again, at this level, I just think it's the right thing to do to give some of these kids a go, even if it's bringing them off the bench, or even just giving them the experience of travelling with the first team squad.
Yeah.
I probably don't know enough about the youngsters, but from what I saw of Dan Neil, he's definitely worth the go. It's difficult, isn't it? Because we're talking midfield. He's a midfielder, and experience counts for a lot in that role. When to sit, when to go. But yeah, and again, Embleton. I'd like to see Embleton really given a chance. I think he's got a lot of. From what I've seen, he's very capable and quite a thoughtful footballer at times. But whether we're talking about Scow and Embleton or anybody else, they need a run of games, and it's difficult to do that. It might be as the season goes on and we've got a lot of games to catch up on. That's when somebody comes through and makes the first team place their own. When we were talking about Maguire, I'd always have Maguire, if not in me first team, then ready to come on, because he can change a game. But at the moment, with McGeady back and Diamond playing, he's not getting a look in, and that might actually give him a bit of a kick up the backside, which might be no bad thing. So yeah, we'll see. I think for this game, he'll go with experience. But yeah, I'd definitely like to see the kids brought through a bit more.
Yeah, I think it'll probably be better to go for a bit more experience in this game, with it being such a difficult game and probably such a bit of an awkward game as well, where Hull wanting to sit back and we wanting to press, but then we don't want to overcommit. It might be a bit of an awkward challenge for a lot of the lads, really, which is why maybe I would look to bring a slightly more defensive setup into it as well, to not overcommit. But then I guess if Hull are going to sit back, then maybe you get the opportunity to press a bit more. You just don't want to get found out defensively, really. I mean, we've been linked with Carl Winchester, the Forest Green Rovers captain, centre midfielder, along with the current Hibs striker. I have forgot his name, but he's currently playing under Jack Ross. Giles made a video on it yesterday. I mean, for me, our main problem this season has been a lack of creativity. It's not necessarily that the goal scorers, although I do think they need to take a little bit more responsibility at times. I think we're struggling to create chances, really. Defensively, I think you couldn't ask for more. But I think if there was one area of the team I would improve in, it would be creativity. Because I think if you create enough chances, I do think White will score plenty of goals, along with the other lads going forward. January transfer targets, of course, we're not going to say specific names, but if you could pick areas of the team to improve, what will be your first port of call?
Centre forward. To me, whoever you're talking about, whether it's Grigg, whether it's Wyke, or heaven forbid, Danny Graham, we need a focal point. We need somebody with some aggression and up front. I was going to I was interested if Dmitri was going to mention. Is it Eves, the ex-Gillingham lad up front? Tom Eves, isn't it? Now, I've only seen a little bit of him, but a couple of years ago, I was hoping we might be in for him, because I thought he looked like one of the best strikers in League One at that time. So maybe he's on Saturday night. If they could do a swap deal, get rid of Charlie Wyke or Danny Graham and bring in Tom Eves, that would be good business. But I don't know if Hull are selling or not.
I still believe in him, and I have a soft spot for him, but I think some City fans would drive him to Sunderland, to be honest with you. He's quite inconsistent, and he struggles sometimes, which is it seems inexplicable on the surface, because he got like 23 goals to Gillingham a few years ago in League One. But I think Gillingham really did play around him and played to his strengths, and he was the focal point, and he's not the focal point in our team. And we sort of, expected him to match that production without analysing why he was able to put those numbers up.
Yeah, I think it happens a lot with strikers, where the team just gets built around them and they start to throw. Gary, I think maybe a little bit harsh on White. I mean, he is our top goal scorer at the moment on it's about 7 goals. I think
he's got 7 league goals. Yeah,
which isn't bad. I mean, it's the best we've had since Madger left. Of course, we were just briefly talking about that before we started recording. I think as well with White, what he will offer you is, same with Honeyman, 100% effort. But I also think, he will offer you something as a target man, and I do think he will. He's got a bit of initiative where if things aren't working, he will start to try different things, which is why for me he always gets in ahead of Will Grigg. I think if we're going to bring in a striker, which I would still bring in one if I could, I think I'll be going for pace up front. I think that's what we could do with.
Yeah, again, it kind of depends how we're going to play, really. And, the problem we have got, and I know Dmitri said the same thing about Hull, is when teams sit back, to me, we're pretty clueless about breaking them down. And the bigger teams in the division, if I can call us that, you're going to have that problem. You're going to have the likes of Northampton and maybe Shrewsbury, and who else has done it to us? Burton are going to make life difficult for us. So I think it depends on how Johnson wants us to play. It seems there's almost inevitability at this level that you're going to need at some point a big man up front to take some of the sting out, hold the ball up and deal with the crosses. I've never rated the guy at Portsmouth, Marcus, is it? The ex-Doncaster guy.
Yeah, he was good at Doncaster, but he's sitting a drop off at Portsmouth.
Yeah, but apparently he's having a better season. And I mean, he had a decent game against us at the Stadium of Light. So yeah, I think it depends how you're going to play. I actually think that Aidan O'Brien, to me, is a striker. Shows a lot of movement, a lot of intent. He's got some of the attributes, but I don't know whether we're playing to his strengths at the moment either. So maybe Johnson's thinking about, mixing it up a little bit. But the big thing for me about the strikers, certainly our strikers, is none of them really look like the type of, whether it's confidence or whatever, they never really look like they're going to take a half chance. And I think that's it with Wyke. If you put it on in the 6-yard box, there's a decent chance he's going to get in the end of it. But I'd like to see him being a lot more selfish and direct, I suppose, and aggressive. And that's what we're missing. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, may as well go on that. Dmitri, you mentioned that you have got a little bit of soft throw and you're willing to back him. But what hasn't gone right for Tom Eaves at Hull? Because he was fantastic at Gillingham, and I think he was a player that we were looking at for a time.
I think he struggles to stay on side. That's one thing. It seems like a really specific thing to nitpick, but it really is a problem. He gets caught offside multiple times a game, and it's something that happens consistently, and he's not been able to correct that. And he doesn't have any pace. Doesn't have any pace at all. But he's 6'5" as a target man. You don't look for that, but he really does turn slower than a cruise ship. And I think confidence has been lacking, because on paper it should work. 6'5", he can finish. He's a big lad physically, and he knows where the goal is in this division. He should know where the goal is in this division. But I do think confidence is so much a part of striker's success, and not getting regular minutes, having to come on as a sub, not having a system that suits him has really made things difficult for him. But he does have a performance in him. He scored some good goals for us. He scored some big goals for us. He got a great hat trick in the FA Cup last year, and I like him. I believe in him. I think there's something there. I don't see how you just lose that when you get 20 plus goals 3-4 years ago now. I don't think that goes overnight.
Yeah, definitely. I think as well we've had a similar problem with Will Grigg over his time here. And a lot of people have said that we haven't really played to his strengths. But my argument with Will Grigg, and I don't know if you agree with us here, Gary, but is that he always seems to, despite people saying we're not playing to his strengths, Will Grigg always seems to me to get his chances regardless. He's always seemed to have, every game he's played, he almost seems to have an open goal or a one-on-one, or maybe a time when if he just committed, he could have got the ball and scored. So I think he's getting his chances. He's just not taking them regardless of the system he's playing under.
Yeah, there's been a couple of games, including one this season. I think it was against Wigan, where he pretty much missed it. Or was it Milton Keynes Dons, where he pretty much an open goal. Shocking. You kind of think, how many times have we seen it where he's come on and you think, right, this is it. If he gets one, he'll be away.
Yeah. I'm sick of saying it.
I think his head's gone, if I'm being honest. I think his head's gone. I think every time he has a chance, it's weighing so heavily on him. He's lost all confidence. He probably needs a move to get away and start fresh. But we know with strikers it's confidence. But I also think you can, at any level, you can create confidence in yourself by doing all the right things and not going missing. And I think all too often Grigg will go missing and he'll find excuses, where other players might. I mean, to be honest, we saw it with Wyke a little bit last season, made himself a bit busier, got amongst certain teams and made them uncomfortable. So again, like with Tom Eaves, I know on his day he can do a job for us, but I just don't see it often enough.
Yeah.
I was going to ask Dmitri, who you playing up front at the moment then, if it's not Eaves?
Josh McGuinness. It's a little bit of a rotation, but Josh McGuinness is Grant McCann's number one choice. And I think he's on 6 goals now.
Go on, Gary.
I was going to say, what sort of player is he? I've not seen him.
This is the problem. He's really, really similar to Eaves, which was one of the problems, which is one of the reasons we struggled to break teams down, because we've got two strikers who are really, really similar. McGuinness is maybe a few inches shorter. He's 6'2". When I say big lad, bulk, can hold a man off, knows where the goal is. To be fair, this year he's had some really nice, astute finishes, and 6 goals isn't that many, but that's okay. Like, he does offer the hold-up play, and he's not expected to score lots. Like, he's not a goal scorer striker. He does hold the ball up and contribute in other ways, and he's quite smart. Like, he's got street smarts. He'll go down at the right time, and he's been around the block enough times to know how to play striker in League One, the Championship. And he did struggle last year, but now dropping down the league at his age, he does look more suited to the division, and he's a competent striker. I'd maybe like someone better than him. I do sometimes think, are we really going to win a league title with him up top? But he's done enough this season. He's done enough.
Yeah. Interesting. I mean, I think we've got a similar problem really with White and Graham, where we've got two strikers who, if one isn't, we've got Greg there as well, of course, but if one isn't performing and you go to put the other one, it's a straight swap. They're both quite sluggish. They're both on brilliant finishes. Neither of them are particularly quick or got much energy. They're kind of similar players. So we'll feel you on that one. Lads, to wrap the show up, Gary, I'll go to you first. Prediction.
Yesterday I said 2-1 to Sunderland. I was rethinking that earlier when Dmitri was talking about the styles of play. I'll stick to that. I'll stick to a 2-1 Sunderland, but an entertaining game. Part of my logic is that our home form has been so terrible. I'm hoping we'll raise our game. Sooner or later our home form's got to improve. I think it was Ipswich at home, the last one we won. So yeah, for no other reason than I'm feeling optimistic, which is pretty rare. I'll go with the Sunderland win, but wow. I wouldn't put money on it.
Dmitri, same question to you. Prediction?
I'll say 1-0. It does feel like a draw, but we don't draw games. We've only drawn 2. We either win great or we lose crushingly. And I do think that I think it's an ugly game, and I think we grit it out. And I think our defence is really strong, and I think you guys will struggle to score past us. We get one, we're able to sit on it, and because you guys will probably come and try and win, that suits us. Whereas I'd rather play you than someone who's bottom of the table. Let's put it that way right now.
Well, we're about 11th, so there's not much difference. I think I'm 3 very different predictions here. I think it's going to depend on the way the game pans out. I think the first 20 minutes they'll see a lot. I think if Hull do get a goal, I think it will be 1-0 to Hull, and I can't see us getting back in front. But I think if we then get a goal, we can then maybe sit off a little bit. Do I trust Lee Johnson to do that? Maybe not. I think you probably want to get the second, and then that could bring it back to 1-1. But what I said to Nick Barnes last week was, last week will have been anyway, the last game we had, if in doubt, go for 1-1. Because Sunderland, we always tend to draw 1-1. But I do want to think that's the way it could go. I can't see either team keeping a clean sheet. But as I say, I think it'll depend on the way the game plans out. Lads, I want to say a big thank you to us both for coming on. I'll leave both of your Twitters in the description as well as the link to Fans React, which both me and Gary are on. Is there anything you wanna say just before we go?
I'd just like to say thanks for having me on. Good luck, guys, for the season. I really appreciate you having me on. It was great to talk about City and Sunderland.
I appreciate you coming on, mate, and I will definitely wish you the best of luck for the rest of the season, provided it doesn't stop us from going up, of course. Thanks,
I'll
everyone,
just
for listening
Jack,
as well.
My next door neighbour's a Hull fan, and me and him had already agreed to start the season. Our ideal would be a Sunderland and Hull top 2. So I'm still banking on that at the end of the season.
Yeah, we're very nice, and I think it'll be two clubs that don't deserve to be in League One to go up. Thanks everyone for listening as well, and I'll join you again sometime.